welcome to the Week 4 recap. I'm joined here by Zach Mayer, my assistant coach. We've had a number of other NAIA men's coaches on, and now it's time to bring in the whole staff to kind of make our staff meetings external, so you guys can hear what we talk about on the day-to-day. But we are to the Week 4 recap of the NAIA men's volleyball season. We did a preview show, and then I think I've had 3 other coaches join me, or 2 other coaches. I think one of the videos I did solo, but we are going into Week 5 here and had some conference play this past week. But Zach, give yourself, or give me and our viewers, a little bit of intro of who you are and how long you've been coaching. We'll go into that.
Yeah, I guess that's the perfect question to set me up. I'm Zach. I am new to the master's program this season. I got here in August as a player. Played all throughout the fall semester. Played the first 2 matches this spring season, and then hung my jersey up, called it quits, put in my retirement letter. My knees and my lower back said that time was up. And so about a month ago, I kind of transitioned to a coaching role. So yeah, really just been coaching here at Masters anyway for just a month now. So
yeah,
pretty new.
You're a graduate student. What are you studying right now?
I am in the biblical studies program. Yep.
Sweet. And being a grad school student, tell me a little touch, I know we'll go into this later, a little touch about your undergrad and where you're from and kind of background there.
My undergrad, I've got 2 degrees in business and then law from Indiana University, where I'm from, back home in Indiana. My volleyball journey, I kind of forewent the recruiting process in high school with the pandemic and, some poor high school coaches that kind of sucked my love of the game out of me a little bit. Ended up close to home at Indiana, played club volleyball there for 3 years, and then also helped out with the women's team as kind of like a scout guy, practice player, and just got to train with them and spend some time with them for a couple of years too.
Yeah, so the transition to coaching, at least in my perspective, has felt fairly natural going through this.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And especially working with the women's team at Indiana was just a great experience. I just tried my best to be kind of a sponge and soak up all the different aspects of kind of the training and the playing and the coaching and everything that goes into that. And then you have the club side of it that's, 100% student run. So kind of having to take a big leadership role in that community as well kind of prepared me well, I would say. So I think the transition's been pretty smooth, and I hope our guys would say the same.
So you are diving headfirst into the NAIA men's volleyball world.
Yeah.
How familiar are you, or what would you say you're at in terms of familiarity with NAIA men's volleyball across the country at this moment? And where were you like last year before you came to Masters?
Yeah. Before I came to Masters, I knew about Masters mainly just because of the huge presence on social media and, the success that this program's had the last couple seasons. But outside of that, really just a small handful of schools that kind of showed some interest in me in high school that I kind of quickly turned away, I guess. And then when my little brother went through the recruiting process, he was primarily a Division I kind of guy, but also had some good conversations with some NAIA coaches. But I'd say for the most part, before this year, very unfamiliar. And now that I've kind of jumped headfirst into this new NAIA world, I'm learning as much as I can, kind of soaking up everything that I can. But I would hope that at this point in time, I could probably name every team in our conference.
Okay, that's a good
Maybe
start.
name like three
We're
conferences,
we're
but
about to start nationally talking here, but
yeah,
we'll see kind of where this goes.
yeah,
Speaking of your younger brother, who's one of the liberos at Purdue Fort Wayne,
yep,
I got a text. I didn't tell you this earlier, but I
yeah.
got a text this morning from Don Gleason, who's the head coach
Mhm.
there. And he's like, "Is the secret sauce to getting big wins to move one of your players into the assistant coaching role?" He's like, "Do I need to do that with
Yeah.
your brother? Is that what you need to do?" And so I thought that was quite comical. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
we're
awesome.
coming off a good win and yeah, getting those funny texts here
Yeah,
and there. So
I love it.
all right, so let's talk NAI men's volleyball nationally,
Yep.
specifically week 4 recap.
Yeah.
Um, we had 3 games ourselves
Mhm.
that you know all about because you were there.
Yeah.
But what other games were you kind of tracking or seeing this past week as I saw you on the road as you were kind of tracking a couple teams here or there?
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest game on my radar for sure was the Saint X versus Ben U game. That was
Yeah.
kind of at the top of my watch list for the week. Couple top teams going head to head. Just I was very interested, to see some very well coached, very talented teams, battle it out. See that Matt Pinala, Landon Fuller matchup
Yeah,
at the net there.
Matt, it seemed like Matt was hitting more.
Yeah, yeah.
Previously, he was
I
winning
did notice
6-2. I
that.
think Cameron Daniels was running a 5-1 in that game.
Yep.
Matt was hitting. Um, but yeah, St. X hit 430 on that game. So the story of
Yeah.
that game was Ben, you couldn't slow down their offense.
Hmm.
And so I found that to be very interesting. I mean, we started the year, and I still think it's true that Ben U was kind of ranked second in our conference
Yeah.
heading into the year, and where they fell nationally, I think was a really big question mark, and it might
Hmm.
still be a really big question mark. They
Yeah,
have a
for
lot of
sure.
6-year guys, older guys, returners that are very talented players. But they're coming off of a rough year this past year, and the previous few years they were
Hmm.
very good and had a lot of talent. So they've had a couple losses this year, that St. X being one of them. They lost to Missouri Valley a little bit earlier in the year,
Yep.
especially as we're trying to figure out, hey, how does our conference stack up to the heart of America, and what does that look like? It's that's kind of a big game, and St. Xavier really handled them. I think the set scores were 18, 18, and 20.
Hmm.
So yeah, definitely an interesting game. Um, Talking more about Heart of America, a couple other games from this past weekend that I was kind of tracking a little bit or came to mind. Mount Mercy beat William Penn in 4. That's a good win for Mount Mercy as they head towards, at the very least, 650 winning percentage to get that one of the at-large host bids into nationals, which seems like they're well talented enough to be able to meet that. Missouri Baptist actually beat Missouri Valley, I think, this past Tuesday. Missouri Valley was coming off of that win against Ben U. And so Missouri Valley is trying to figure out, I guess, exactly where they fall within the Hart Conference. That's a really good win for MOBAP. And then I think Missouri Valley also lost the second match this past weekend to Park, Missouri. They lost that in 4. Park, Missouri is still down what I expect to be their starting opposite of freshman Adrian Figueroa, a kid from the Dominican Republic. He's a very good player, played for the DR in the Final Six tournament up in Canada this past summer for their national team. Um, did you see anything about the Grandview versus Dordt match?
Yeah, I was gonna say there was a handful of five setters this past
Yeah.
week that um, kind of got my attention, and Grandview Dordt was at the top of that list, followed by want to say Indiana Tech and Lords
Yeah.
was another big five setter, and UC
Yeah.
Merced and Hope, big five
Yes.
setter, but five set
Yep.
win for Hope over UC Merced there.
Yep. That Grandview and Dordt match stood out. Andre Leandro hit 773 with 19 kills for Grandview. So I would have to guess that was the difference maker, and Dort had no answer for him on that night. So the last match that I felt like was really big in the NAI this past weekend was in the WAC. Lawrence Tech versus Cornerstone. Both those teams were undefeated going into this past week. Lawrence Tech won it in 4. I'm very interested. I think this week new ratings come out for the top 15. Lawrence Tech and Cornerstone, especially going into this weekend, were teams that had won out of conference matches in the preseason, and I expected to jump up quite a bit in the rankings. Lawrence Tech, I'm sure, will be right up there in that top tier. Where does it put Cornerstone? I'm not sure. I think they're a one-loss team right now, but they seem to be pretty talented, and that's quite a battle. And then any other matches in the NAI that you were kind of noticing or tracking this past week, or did we kind of cover a lot of them?
I think those were the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then we get to talk about our team. And so normally we talk about our team, or I try to talk about our team a little bit less on these shows and podcasts. But since I have you on, I figured maybe we talk about us a little bit more. And we're coming off of quite a week. So I'll let you kind of just talk about our week at Masters and what we're coming off of this week.
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge for the guys, but especially as coaches, having multiple matches, back to back in a week, let alone 3. We played a very good Westcliff team Wednesday night, quickly turned that around, went on the road Thursday, played at Menlo Friday, at Stanford Saturday. And so I think the biggest challenge in that is, instilling confidence in your guys and making them feel very prepared for those matches without necessarily looking too far ahead and being able to kind of focus on whatever's next on the schedule. So anytime there's those, small turnaround windows, it can be a little bit of a challenge to, keep those guys prepared and healthy and well rested. And that sort of thing. But yeah, very, very busy week for us as a team.
Yeah. Showing everyone the kind of internal side of what we were dealing with or what we went through this past week with those 3 games. It was, I felt like as a coach, it was very easy for our guys to want to look ahead to the weekend and look past Westcliff. Just because naturally being an NAI team, we're excited. We have a long history playing Menlo and a lot of battles there from when they were NAI. And then just like natural excitement to go play Stanford, right? But I mean, as coaches, we really didn't talk about the Stanford Menlo scouting report, anything until after that Westcliff game was over. Monday and Tuesday were 100% focused on Westcliff. We had some conversations with the team about kind of the format of this past week, how it's one of the closest weeks we have to mirroring what nationals looks like, where you have 5 games in 4 days, or I'm sorry, 4 games in 5 days. We had 3 in 4 days. But even more so, I found it very interesting. This was not done on purpose. It just happened to land on a schedule like this. It kind of went that throughout the week, each one of our opponents got a little bit harder. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so, sitting right now where the rankings are, a team like Westcliff could certainly be in our pool at nationals. That you got to get through your pool play before you get to the semifinals. You got to get through that semifinal before you get to nationals. And so we certainly had some conversations about that. Now, on your end, right, I kind of told you, hey, you cover Stanford scouting report. You focus on Stanford. I'll focus on Westcliff and Menlo. What was the week like for you prepping for what was honestly our toughest match of the week? What was your week like with that, and how did you go about that? Just getting your mind on that and preparing the team like early enough, but without overlooking the opponent before.
Yeah, and I think like you said, Stanford was my big project of the week. And while I wanted the guys to, focus on that next match and not look ahead to the weekend, it was almost my
You,
job
you
to,
looked right
I
ahead.
had to
Yeah.
look ahead a little bit
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
tried my best not to um, share my excitement for that match too much and, try to keep it a little bit contained. But um, definitely watching a ton of film on Stanford, playing with a bunch of different data there. Um, it's always interesting when we go and play those big Division I teams because we never really know what lineup they're going to throw at us. We don't always know how they're going to treat us as an opponent, but I think with the way that we started our season, um, we've become an opponent that teams like that, are kind of forced to
Yeah,
respect.
they
So
respect. Yeah.
yeah. So it made my job a little bit easier and, having a lot more confidence in knowing what we were going to expect from Stanford. Um, but at the same time, it made me feel, not very helpful to you in our matches against Westcliff and
You were just completely
Menlo.
lost
Yeah,
against Westcliff. Okay.
I know that, there's some tough serving teams. I know, who their big heavy hitters are, but outside of that, not much help. But I think um, that also allowed me to kind of focus on our own side of the net in those two matches and
Yeah.
kind of give feedback there and look at the numbers there and kind of take a look inward a little bit before I had to, take that big project of Stanford this weekend. But
So within that Stanford
yeah.
match, in your prep, how many matches did you watch? Right, we had access to kind of all of them. Right,
Mhm.
they were coming off of a home and away against Hawaii, and then a couple home matches against UC Irvine. And so they had gone like 1-3 in their previous 4 matches,
Yeah.
but those were 4 matches against top 5 teams in the country NCAA wise, and they'd just come off of a win against Hawaii. What was your kind of thoughts watching those matches, going into that, knowing our team, trying to figure out how we stacked up,
Hmm.
just honest expectations?
Yeah. I think um, the biggest thing is Stanford was rated #1 in the country in strength of schedule. Like you said, all of their matches this season have been, big matchups against big teams, which, first of all, that makes my job of getting to go back and watch all of that pretty enjoyable.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I watched their previous 4 matches going in uh, to this past weekend. I think um, going back and watching, the most recent ones helped me to feel the most prepared, I would say. But at the same time, like you said, there's uh, a perspective that I kind of got to put myself in when thinking about our team, like watching those matches against Hawaii and UC Irvine. Like obviously we don't serve like Hawaii and UC Irvine does. So, watching those 4 matches, I didn't really get a clear picture of, what a solid passing team Stanford really is. So, skills like that and thinking of, our team, I was able to kind of go back and find some opponents that maybe are more similar to our style of play and our strengths going into that big match.
Yeah. I've always felt like as a coach going into matches that, I mean, that you're the underdog in these
Hmm.
matches, right? If you're not feeling confident, all you got to do is watch more.
Yeah.
If you watch enough of any team, you start to see some weaknesses here or there, and we all have them,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
We pulled off a win on Saturday last night, but it wasn't completely clean all the time,
Hmm.
right? We
Yeah, for
made some
sure.
uncharacteristic errors at times. We have some things to clean up, and I think that's true of everyone,
Yeah.
right? And so just like I found the more that you watch someone, if you're not feeling confident on it, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I can see where. Um, you know, my thought kind of going into it and thinking like, hey, they're certainly a very good team, and
Oh yeah.
we'd kind of played them in the fall a little bit. Now, fall
Hmm.
matches are certainly different in the fact that you're playing some different lineups. It's a different feel. We played them in a tournament in Fresno. Uh, and what we did that day was kind of had our A team play their A team and our B
Hmm.
team play their B team at the same time. And we were playing two sets straight no matter what. And both our A team and B team got beat in the first set like 25-14,
Yep.
25-15. Just got blown out, like didn't compete that well. Uh, and yet both of those teams came back in the second set and
Hmm.
won like deuce games. And so just kind of having that experience this past fall, I was thinking like, hey, we might have a shot at this game, but it's gonna be something like that. And part of the conversation to the guys and trying to prep them for this is like, hey, if we find ourselves in a tight set, those are the sets that we have to win and have to
Yeah,
pull away.
for sure.
I fully expected to get blown out one or two sets,
Hmm.
and I thought we might be able to win if we like squeaked a couple through.
Yeah.
Now it just so happened to be we were, it was very competitive in all five
Hmm.
sets. So that didn't quite go the way I expected, but it also
Yeah.
didn't shock me that we were kind of in there at the end and competed,
Hmm.
and pulled it off. And so that was, credit to our team and our
Yeah,
guys
for
that
sure.
a really good job. All right, let's go into the night before.
Yeah.
Um,
Big conversation there.
big conversation the night before Stanford that right now I think a lot more people are talking about our Stanford match.
Yeah.
But personally, I've still got the Menlo match on my mind. For one, very
Hmm.
weird reason.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
feel like we jinxed it a little bit having
we
a
did, we
conversation
did.
about this earlier in the week.
So, yeah, it might have been 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
We had the
I think you're right.
conversation of how many cards have we all gotten in our lives, right?
Yeah.
And maybe what was it for? And my answer leading into 2 weeks ago was I've never had a card in my life as a
Hmm.
player or a coach. Now, I also will put a little asterisk on that of like I don't count like taking a delay of game yellow card if
Yeah.
I want to switch to substitution or something weird like that. That's
Hmm.
I don't count that in the mix. Um, but I'd never gotten a card in my life. And then on Friday, I got three. Uh, and I was I was completely baffled, and as was you and
Hmm.
Aaron, who's also on our bench helping coach. Um, but I was completely lost. What did you see there in those? It was two separate instances, two
Yeah.
yellows, and the second yellow leads to red, so that's the third. But talk to me from your point of view what happened, and I'll
Yeah.
give you my point of view as well.
And I mean, I think because we had had that conversation, a couple weeks before, it's like my initial reaction was I just started laughing on the bench and
Yeah.
um, just kind of thinking about how ironic it was that, we finally got your first card. And, I was happy that I was, there on the bench next to you to witness that historic moment. But I think um, it was very, very undeserved. Um, I would say it was kind of my initial reaction to it, just with the calls that were made and, our arguments against said calls were just very, very reasonable, very rational, very calm. Um,
My first one was less calm than
first one was a little bit less calm, but
first one was a little bit less calm, and
yeah,
the
I was
situation was
a little bit surprised with, how quick he was to pull that card out of his pocket.
yeah. The first situation I got the card, we got a block that went like straight down, and
Yep.
yet it went straight down. It went right off their player's foot, right,
Yes.
and just kind of shot off to the side. It was still in play for sure, but he blew a quick whistle, um, and realized he made a mistake. It went off his foot. And I
Hmm.
was frustrated because I'm like, we were in a good situation to win that point. I was a little frustrated.
Yep.
Um, didn't say anything completely inappropriate, but I said something to the up ref. And, typically, a ref understands, like, I understand the replay is the right call.
Yeah.
Typically the ref understands, like, hey, I made a mistake. Coach can say a little bit and we move on. Right. And I said just a little bit. And he came right out with a yellow so fast that I was just baffled with it. And then the very next set, and there were some other calls, like some touch calls and some line calls that, were controversial for sure. I think on that match there's a number, but I don't think he likes me a whole lot. But and then the third set, there's another play that they have a back row setter. He goes up to save a ball at the net, and he pokes it over, and he jumps doing so, and the whole team saying back row attack, and he's calling under, saying that the guy jumped, but he was underneath the plane of the net. And as soon as that play, they play the point out. Menlo wins that point. They actually make a great dig on a cross-court ball in that point. But I go right up to the down ref. I'm talking to the down ref. And essentially, from my point of view as a coach, I'm trying to figure out how is he interpreting that rule to say he was under. Right? Yeah. I'm trying to say, is he saying, is any part of the ball under? Is any part of the hand under? Like, how does he interpret that rule? Because there is judgment in this for sure. But what you're trying to do as a coach is you're trying to figure out, does the ref understand what the actual rule is? Because if not, you take it right to the rule book and you can get that point back. And I watched it back on video. This conversation lasted 15 seconds. And in 15 seconds of me talking to the down ref, and it wasn't animated at all, the up ref just wanted to move on. And so he gave me a second yellow for like delaying it. And because of the second yellow, then he pulled out a red and gave a point. And I was just talking to the down ref for 15 seconds right as soon as the rally ends. I was completely baffled at it. And so that was my story of 3 yellow cards or 2 yellow cards and a red in a match, and just absolutely wild in my mind.
And somehow that still wasn't, the most exciting part of our weekend.
And then we show up the next day, and I'm so glad. The best part. I'm so glad the way, like, I was very frustrated in that Menlo match, but I'm so glad the way I acted at the end of the Menlo match. I went up and I shook that ref's hand and I said nothing. I just walked off. I'm like, I'm just not in a good space to have a conversation about this right now. Shook his hand, walked off. Thank goodness, because the next day he's the up ref at Stanford. And I saw him. I was like, oh my goodness. I'm first of all, like, I'm so glad I didn't say anything the night before, like, to continue it on past the match. But we chatted before the match started against Stanford, and like, he gets it. And we moved on. Tough day, but it was just eye rolling wild. So
in Stanford's big gym, I was ready to get a little bit of revenge for you, him giving you those yellow and red cards, and then we had a green card to work with at Stanford. I was ready to throw a couple of those back at him. But
I'm trying to think, what was our record on the challenges? I think we got one back on an ace that hit the back line. Then
I want to say we won 2 or 3 of them, I think.
I tried. The one I lost was on game point in the 4th set, and we were down 24-23. And we lost the point, and there was a pancake during the rally, and I challenged it because I was going to get the challenge back just to like double check, right? It's a pancake. Who knows if it hits the floor? But I did think it was up, so that didn't really surprise me at all. So, but that was quite a story. All right, we had this conversation a couple weeks ago about cards, though. And you said that you've gotten a number of cards.
For sure. All
right, and this comes back to your college club days.
Yes.
Way too much.
I want to say I don't think I ever got a card until I started playing collegiate club volleyball at Indiana. Um,
Okay, so let's transition this a little bit.
yeah,
First of all, the purpose of like these videos and just my social media in general, right?
hmm
First priority is like, look, I'm the men's volleyball coach at Masters. I'm trying to promote our Masters program.
yeah,
Um, but then it's like second priority, like I want to grow the sport of
hmm
NAI men's volleyball, right? I think there's some really quality players in there, and the more we can do to grow it, I think the better. And then kind of third tier is like, hey, how do we just grow men's volleyball, right,
yeah,
across the board? And club volleyball is certainly a part of that, and I think it's a part that a lot of people don't really get or
hmm
understand. And if I'm going to be honest, I know very little about the college club scene. So talk
yeah,
to me about your experience on that. Just like give our viewers a little bit of background on what college club volleyball is like and the expectations of it.
yeah. And I think, like you said, collegiate club is a area of the game that probably has the least amount of exposure publicly. But at the same time, it's an area of the game that just provides so many opportunities and so many awesome experiences for college students who want to continue playing a sport that they love, and making some friends and having fun doing it. Um, and so, I'm very thankful for that whole community. Um, it's a very, very different scene culturally, um, because it is a little more laid back, a little bit, unserious, a little bit more fun and high energy, which is where my plethora of cards have been given to me. Um, but I think the biggest thing is, with the amount of, large Division I universities that offer a men's volleyball team. I want to say, I know it's grown in the last couple of years, but at one point I wanted to say it was around like 22 or so Division I
Yeah.
schools. Yeah,
I
and
want to say it might be 30. I'm not sure though.
yeah,
Yeah.
but still, not enough for sure. But my biggest thing in high school was, I wanted to go to a big university, with a lot of people that had a lot to offer, big campus, that sort of thing. And I think what the college club world does is, it allows opportunities for athletes like that who, want that big school college experience, to still kind of be able to play at a high level, um, if they're not able to, get one of those spots at one of those very few Division I schools, and especially with the amount of, international guys that go and play at that Division I level. So that's a huge thing for College Club. We also get a good number of guys who do make the decision, to go play at the, Division I level, Division II, 3, NAIA level. And, maybe that is just not for them. Maybe they're looking for something different. They transfer to a bigger school. They, start playing collegiate club there. And, just have a blast. And we had some great players at Indiana. Um, a guy who used to play Division I at McKendree, was a good teammate of mine. And then, like I said, I had a bunch of teammates who had a bunch of offers to go play D2, D3, a couple that had some good offers to go to Division I schools who, with the whole COVID year eligibility, that was just a big mess. And, some of them got their offers pulled back. And, they just decided to go to Indiana. And there's a small group that I will say, just because I still have a little bit of a vendetta out, against those guys. But there, every once in a while, there's a small handful of players. There's a guy who played professionally in Europe, um, and then went to Michigan State, who's in our Big Ten conference, for grad school. Played there, big, like 6'10" lefty oppo, very European kind of style volleyball. And then a very, very good Missouri team one year had one or two guys who played undergrad at Stanford actually, and then were at Missouri for med school. So needless to say, that was a very, very good Missouri team for that year or two.
So so do the top teams really, is there any consistency or does it change every year with just like, hey, there's some random situation here or there, and all of a sudden, like this team is really good all of a sudden.
Yeah. I think it definitely varies year to year, but there are definitely some powerhouse programs. Um, Indiana being in the Big Ten, we have our smaller Big Ten conference, and then we're also a part of a larger um, Midwest conference. We actually use the same MIVA acronym, kind of. It's a little funny, but um, I want to say the last 2 years at nationals, our Midwest Conference has had three of the four Final Four teams, and then both um, final championship teams from our conference in the Midwest. But out here on the West Coast, UC Santa Barbara, big powerhouse school. It's always very talented. UCLA, USC are normally pretty good. Um, but those big um, big schools that offer a I don't know what adjective I want to use here, but offer that college experience that a lot of high school kids are looking for. Um, Wisconsin's the first one that comes to mind. They've got a wonderful uh, club program that's been a powerhouse. They lost in the national championship last year to a very good Loyola Chicago team who had a couple former Division One players from their team there, and then had won the national championship the year before. But a reason that they're so insanely talented is just because of what their university has to offer. And then they have such a great relationship with their women's team there. And again, their women's team
Yeah.
is such a powerhouse program there. So it's always cool to get to play against them at nationals, and those superstar players from their women's team are on the bench, coaching them a little bit, um, and it's just a cool experience. But yeah.
How does how do practices and schedules work in terms of playing games? I know about college club nationals. Are
Yeah.
you guys playing throughout the year? Like, are you traveling much? Are there other tournaments outside of that? And then how much are you
Mhm.
practicing?
Yeah. So our schedule is fairly similar to kind of what we're doing here, where we're playing at, different tournaments in the fall semester, but they're not as serious. They don't count for anything, that sort of thing. And then the spring semester is when we start our, kind of organized, sanctioned tournaments that, go on your record that count for the
Is
weekly
it
rankings.
all tournaments? Is it more like high school club style where everyone's meeting at one location and you're
Yes,
playing a bunch of games?
yep, all tournament style. There's very rarely any, single matches or that sort of thing. But like I said, being at Indiana, we are in a smaller Big Ten conference. So we would do the whole, you play every one of your conference opponents once, and then they reseed you for a conference tournament at the end. And then us as the Big Ten conference would then join together with the whole Midwest Conference, which is made up of four or five smaller conferences, and have our big weekend of the Midwest Conference tournament. And like I said, how you do those tournaments go toward your rankings, your seeding for nationals, um, all of that sort of thing. Um, but practices, I want to say we practiced two, maybe three times a week for, you
Pretty
know,
unstructured with it,
2 hours. Yeah. Um,
or just
Fairly unstructured, but there is a wonderful, wonderful organization out there called the National Collegiate Volleyball Federation, NCVF, that kind of organizes everything that goes on in the spring semester, all of those tournaments that count for your conference championship and everything that's working toward the big event that they put on with the national championship. And I think, again, that's something that's so awesome that Collegiate Club offers is like such a unique opportunity where, the men's club and the women's club national tournament is taking place in, the same place at the same time. And it's not just the top 10 or top Final Four teams. It's, you know, maybe 400, all in the same place at the same time. And uh, they really do a great job of organizing all of that, putting it together. Our national championship last year was held in the T-Mobile Center in downtown Kansas City, so pretty big arena there. And then the previous year was like the coolest thing ever that it really is an
Arizona
experience you don't get
Diamondbacks.
in, yeah, it's really
I've
an
seen
experience you
pictures of
don't
that.
get in the NCAA. Yeah, they laid tarp out across the whole infield at Chase Field in Phoenix where the Diamondbacks play and
Yeah.
set up a sport court there in the infield and the all the championship matches were played outdoors under the lights there in Phoenix. So it was really awesome. They do a good
Yeah.
job of
I
organizing,
saw
but
I saw pictures of that at one point. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool idea. That's really
yeah,
unique and different. So,
yeah,
last question regarding club volleyball that I don't
yeah,
know. Um, it's not a varsity sport.
yeah.
Not that supported by the school is my
Mhm.
assumption. Or how do finances work? Like, do the players pay for that? Traveling, getting there, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Most universities do a good job of supporting their club sports programs, and really, all of their clubs in general. So at Indiana, we did get a uh, allowance from the school, but
Hmm.
again, it really doesn't put a huge dent in, what we need to cover for the season, and they kind of put stipulations on what we can and can't spend that money on. And some schools get more money than others. At Indiana, we had a system with all of the club sports that kind of the more involved we were with the school and with other clubs, we would get more money for that year. And so, we were always trying to be involved around campus and we hosted some big tournaments to kind of get some more involvement points there to kind of get more money. But for the most part, we're self-funded.
Paying out
We
of
have,
pocket or fundraising?
yeah, mostly out of pocket. We try to do as much fundraising as we can, but um, with all of the craziness that college brings, there's not a ton
It's
of
tough.
time for that. But
Yeah.
most club programs are self-governed,
Yeah.
by their students, by a board. Normally, every team has a treasurer. So those guys do a really good job of kind of organizing what the season's going to look like. And we try to get that cost down as much as possible. I was on the board for a couple of years at Indiana, so I kind of got the insight to that. But
What's a range of like what someone might pay for a year of playing college club volleyball? Are we talking about
yeah,
like a couple thousand, 5,000, 10,000? Is it similar to the high school club?
when we're in the fall semester and we're not going to as many tournaments, we're not spending too much on like new
Yeah.
jerseys for nationals, that sort of thing. A
Yeah.
semester, at least at Indiana. And I will say we are a top 5 ranked accounting program in the country. So we had some really, really great treasurers when I was there who would kind of keep the cost down as much as possible, even to the point of, sharing a bed with one of your teammates, 4 guys to a room, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Um, but fall semester, somewhere in that like $300 to $500 range.
Mhm.
So not too terrible. And then spring semester, when we're, splurging on new jerseys, the entry fees for those conference tournaments and those kind of things are a little bit higher. And then we always wanted to splurge on, nice hotel rooms for nationals to make that, like the best experience for our guys for that season. So I want to say second semester is closer to that like $600 to $800 for that
Mhm.
semester range.
Okay.
So
That's not,
yeah,
that's actually a little bit cheaper than I was expecting too. So.
yeah. Again, I
All
don't.
right.
I
Yeah.
think that's
Every
fairly
school's got to be different
consistent.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got a good accounting program at Indiana, so
Yeah. Very
thankful
cool.
for those guys.
Very cool. Well, I learned quite a bit new today about the
Yeah.
college club volleyball scene, so appreciate it. All right. So heading into this week, I know here at Masters, we're getting ready for 2 games.
Yep.
We got Simpson on Wednesday and then UC Merced on Saturday. So looking forward to those. And I should be posting this tomorrow. It's Sunday when we're filming this. But we've got rankings coming out. So very interested to see how that goes. And would love to get some other coaches around the country to hop on these weekly with me on Sundays. So just shoot me a DM or a text or reach out somehow or an email. If you want to jump on, I'd love to have some more coaches and get some more insight and different opinions. So just trying to grow the game. So appreciate it. Zach, you have a great night and
you too.
see you in the office tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Sounds good.